Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news of the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about stop killing games because boy, it's starting to look a little successful because we have a ton of people that are still signing, and the reason this is important is because for those that have, which is probably most of us, right? I have before. I've even helped sign some petitions and initiatives and stuff, get signatures, but if anything is absolutely incorrect when signing a petition, they just throw out your name. And if you're doing it on paper, they will actually throw out the entire paper, even if there's just one bad signature. So this is why even the guy that's completely heading this up, Ross, I believe his name is, it's why he has continued to say, look, we need to keep having signatures to cover for all of the bad ones that are in the initiative. And two, there could be some bad apples purposefully doing things wrong to try to sign things out. And it can also be some of the third-party publish or AAA game publishers that are not excited about this initiative, which we'll get to in just a second. But yeah, it is important to actually keep signing. So there's one for the EU, and there's also one for the UK, because again, the UK is not a part of the EU anymore. Actually, I'm just curious. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't actually have a list for the United Kingdom. But yeah, either way, regardless of where you are, take the time to sign. Or if you know somebody, show them and be like, hey, if you care about video games, if you care about this initiative, go ahead and sign this. And what is this initiative? There's been an increasing number of video games that have sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support ends from publishers. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to consumers, but also makes preservation effectively impossible. Again, I have games I can look at right now on my shelf that are, over 20 years old that still play on my Xbox, and it's great. Okay, it's awesome. Again, if you have that old hardware too, you can play the old stuff, which is wonderful. But furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. So that's why this is a big deal. It's effectively that we know things are ultimately sold as goods, and then when they yank the cord, even for these single player, and this is not just live service, this is single player games too, because some of them require an online connection. Sometimes it's just that initial connection, and other times it's consistent pinging, like Ubisoft games we know for sure actually do that. They've actually gotten in trouble for that legally and have admitted to it. And I'm sure it's on pretty much every single game that Ubisoft does and sells. So, but yeah, the unplayable part of the game, it's like, okay, well, then we're buying a license or we're buying a service but that's not how it's presented. And so it's unfair to present it that way. Some people have said on some of their other channels that it's like if you were looking at a game and it said on the cover or the box or was in the terms or whatever that this game is a license, that basically it can be pulled in 3 to 5 years, maybe people would think twice about spending that on a $70 or $80 game. And I even think of like Mario Kart World. That's mostly a multiplayer game. If they pull the servers from that game, there's going to be no way to actually run your own servers or anything. There will be, to a degree, an offline mode. I'm sure you'll actually still be able to play, I hope. I hope Nintendo hasn't gone that far yet. But there's been some other games, and what really kicked this off was like The Crew with Ubisoft. Someone bought a physical game of The Crew, had the data on the disc, and plugged it in, and was denied access to playing the game because the servers were taken offline by Ubisoft. So they sued them. And that's actually, I guess, still working through the courts right now. But also there's been other games that have had this problem, and one of them right now is actually Anthem. EA is going to pull the plug on just a few people that actually play the Anthem servers. I'm really surprised that it's actually still up and running. With how bad of a launch that was, because yeah, it was not ready. It was super buggy. There were even unfinished assets toward the middle and end of the game. Support for the game wasn't super good for a long time. Yeah, BioWare has fallen further than it should have for quite a few games in a row. So yeah, this next one, I don't think they can mess up. It's got to be good, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been incredibly frustrating to think that, for a lot of us, such as myself, I'm 35, you could go buy games and play them as long as the stuff was running and operating. But again, the companies don't want that to happen because it's like, well, we want you to buy the new stuff. We want you to play the live service. We want you to play the next big thing that's exciting and fun, like Marathon, right? That's a great example of, or like the next Battlefield, which maybe that'll be good, maybe it won't. I'll keep my ear to the grindstone for the channel. But this is something I totally agree with because it's like buying a product. I mean, it's like leasing a car, but then you know that you're leasing the car, right? Usually for 3 years. You don't own it. They do. They're allowing you to drive it and use it. It's got that new nice car smell and feel, and it's like, it's great, right? It's fun. And they deal with all of the maintenance, but again, you're always also having a payment. I have 3 cars right now where I just bought them outright and they're all paid off and they run and work and they're not amazing, but they all do the jobs that they need to do and they actually do it pretty mechanically soundly, which is great, which is what I bought them for. But I bought them as goods. I didn't buy them as a service. But with video games, with how digitized everything is getting, even with what we see right now with like the Switch 2 and all of the third-party games, all of those are on servers. And we've seen storefronts too, like the 360 and the Wii U. They have just yanked the storefronts, and all of those games are like gone. They just completely evaporate. So unless you have the files already installed, like I do, then you can still have access. Okay, you can still have that, or maybe to a degree, you can have that connected to your actual online account. But yeah, so much of it is actually not there anymore. And this is kind of the further corporatization of video games. Okay, first it was kind of a few, or it was just live service, or even going back further, it was just mobile games. But yeah, it's just continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And this is really frustrating. Now, there was actually a response from the Video Game Europe. Okay, this is like a board that basically controls video games to a degree in Europe or in the European Union. And they said, we appreciate the passion of our community. However, the decision to discontinue online services is multifaceted. Again, this is not just for online games. This is also for single player that require a connection at all times. It's never taken lightly and must be an option for companies when an online experience is no longer commercially viable. I agree with that, okay? They shouldn't keep spending money if they can't make a profit because they're a business. I understand that. We understand it can be disappointing for players, but when it does happen, the industry ensures that players are given fair notice. Again, that's not, hey, we're gonna steal your stuff. Just giving you fair warning. No, that doesn't mean it's okay. Seriously. Given fair notice of their prospective changes in compliance with local consumer protection laws. And this is the thing that we're trying to change. The whole initiative does not actually change the law today. It gets the governments to look at the issue and to start making laws. That's the point, okay? Now, this is just the first hurdle, the initiative, but the fact that they are starting to push back, and there's a longer response too that's a lot more detailed. You can go read that too if you'd like, but I'd like to keep going over this. Private servers are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data allow them to download it themselves. Wow, novel. Remove illegal content. Again, why do you care? You can put a disclaimer in your EULA that says that you absolve all responsibility since you're no longer supporting the game. Combat unsafe community content. Again, can't people be responsible for themselves since they're adults? Because generally speaking, most of the games that we're talking about, they're rated M games. And if 17 is the issue, just make games now 18. Ta-da! Which they are in PEGI anyway. So unsafe community content would not exist and would leave rights holders liable. Again, absolve yourself. It's not that hard. In addition, many titles are designed from the ground up to be online only. Again, you can make an offline mode. Suicide Squad did that. Redfall did that. So does The Crew 2 now, and so does Crew Motorfest. They all have end-of-life plans. And they install those before they pull the plug. Right? Suicide Squad, if you still have a game, you can plug that in and you can still play it. Concord, you can't. Babylon's Fall, you can't. Godfall, you can't. Multiverse, you can't. Anthem, you won't be able to in like 180 whatever days. So yeah, these proposals would curtail development or developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create. Why? Because you have to keep supporting the game? No, you don't. You can create an offline mode. You can absolve the liability. You can even choose to leave some servers around. And when someone pays for a server, like in an old Battlefield game, you just flip it on. How long did they pay for? They paid for 2 months. Okay? They have 60 days for this server to be on. They can do that. EA does. I mean, what the heck are we talking about here? And then developer choice? How many examples do we need just in this decade of the publisher deciding everything? The developers don't have a choice. They're your puppets. Don't gaslight us here. This is not about the developers having choice. It's why the developers leave and start their own freaking studio, because they're trying to get away from you. AAA. I'm talking to you, Activision Blizzard. I'm talking to you, EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, Embracer. You guys are the problem. So don't sit here and make it the developer's choice. They don't have any. They're slaves at their own job. And when there's pushback, they're wrong, you're right, because you sit there and of course you play video games like most of us, right? Wrong. You're just there to make money. That's all it is. And then prohibitively expensive to create. Why? You know that an offline mode is a patch? You know that setting up a front to host servers is actually really cheap and easy? That even Aspire can do it? They're a really small company, folks. But they did it with Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. You can still do that right now. Or you can create the ability to host your own server. Again, completely absolve yourself of everything. And none of this requires anyone to hand over the netcode. Not a thing. Make an offline mode, run your own servers, allow them to run their own servers, or make it an option to rent one. Like, this is ridiculous. They are acting so stupid. And why do they sound so stupid? Well, let's go over the board. Warner Brothers, Roblox, Epic Games, Electronic Arts, Nintendo of Europe, Microsoft, Activision. So they got 2 votes now. Sony Interactive Entertainment, Take-Two, Ubisoft, Level Infinite, Square Enix, Bandai Namco, and the rest of them, I don't actually know. So it's look at that smile. She cares about our gaming experience. She cares about, player choice. She cares about the developers having a choice when making their video games. No, they don't. And this is what makes me upset, is because they see what's happening, and see, they didn't put this stuff out. This was on the 7th. We hit 1 million on the 6th. Like on the 5th or the 6th. So it didn't take very long for them to respond when we hit 1 million. So already they're worried about this because they don't want governments to look into this. And when one government starts making some rules, like with loot boxes, for example, with EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2, that was such a colossal mess. That kind of like shifted loot boxes a little bit in live service games because, again, companies don't want to deal with the liability, especially when they're pushing against a large governing body over a region or when they're dealing with countries that are suing them. But again, I think this is what we need. Take our games back, because ultimately, if this doesn't work, if we can't get laws passed, even have the option to have laws, which still not maybe great anyway, but it's at least a step in the right direction. The only option we have left is just to say no with our wallets. And maybe that's ultimately what needs to happen. Withhold your money. No more pre-orders. No more microtransactions. I'm not saying you can't play the game. Wait for a discount. Whatever kind of a discount is good for you. Maybe buy less microtransactions than you normally would. But they won't listen unless they are required to by law, which is the only protections we have, or when we stop withholding money. Because regardless of how they look, folks, they're not your friend. I don't care if you're on Xbox. I don't care if you're on Steam. I don't care if you're on PlayStation or Nintendo or GOG or whatever. At the end of the day, they are a business. Their role, now they can be nice about it, which is why we appreciate Steam, which is why we appreciate GOG, which is why some of us appreciate Game Pass right now, or PSN Plus, right? But at the end of the day, they are still a business. Their role is to get your money. And so when we withhold the money, that's when we have power. And all of us do. When you and I do it, it's not a lot. But when there's a bunch of people in a region that are doing it. Anyway, if you like the video, go ahead and like, sub, all that jazz. You can find me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Don't forget our playlist there. There's a bunch of stuff that we do here on the channel. And then you can also follow me at Twitch as well at Don't Tread on Thee. When I'm playing games, I'll chat with y'all. But yeah, this has got to work. So again, keep sharing this around. Keep sharing the content that's promoting this type of stuff because, yeah, this is for gamers. Seriously. This is for us because we want to buy a good again. We're getting tired of getting screwed as a service when they just yank support. It's getting old. With that, folks, I'll see you guys on the next one.